I have the difficult task of not repeating anything that was said already, and also to be extremely short, because basically we are running out of time. So I will have 3 messages to you, and I'll try to say them in a convincing enough way without going in details of why these messages are true. So one message is that monitoring media freedom and pluralism is very complex and evolving thing. It's a moving target, and it's a very complex target. I hope that you are already partially convinced by the presentation of Elda, seeing how complex the NPM instrument is, and also by all the other things that Beata mentioned as additional aspects of media pluralism. But I also want to say something as a broader reflection that if anybody in 1989, 1990 had told an Eastern European like me that we will still be talking about media freedom in 2016, I wouldn't have believed it, because back then we thought it's a simple thing. We just remove media censorship and everything will be fine. Media freedom will be perfect. Then we figured out that media freedom is actually only one side of the whole story. And media freedom, first of all, has plenty of aspects, but then it's only the opportunity structure on which media pluralism comes. And media freedom just gives the floor for self-expression, but then we need media pluralism to have this self-expression for everyone. Media freedom is the opportunity for access to information, but then we need the pluralism in order to have accessible variety of information. Again, media freedom gives the floor for public deliberation, but we need the pluralism in order to have it amongst all the groups in the society. So as we see, it's a very complex factor that involves not only the political culture, but the economics and media traditions in every country. So it's a very challenging task that the monitor is doing, and I'm only trying to also give a message to the CMPF that obviously it's needed, a simplification is always needed in order to provide numbers, to provide a particular result, but I want to also encourage you not to give up to the complexity of the task and to continue with this complexity of the analysis of the media pluralism, because this is the added value of NPM when compared to all the other indexes that we have outside, done by different NGOs and different organizations. But I'm not going to go in details about that. The second, and I mentioned that it's an evolving thing. So 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't talk about the internet, we wouldn't talk about social media. Now, with all these new technologies, it's becoming even more complex issue to monitor, but I think that with the evolving of the NPM, that will be covered in depth as well. So the second message that I want to say is that monitoring has policy impact. And Gabriele already mentioned quite a lot, so I'll just add up to convincing you in that area. And last week I was on a conference with accession states. Different politicians and academics from different accession countries were there. And listening to them, how they talk about monitoring in terms of progress reports, for example, reminded me also of how this whole story of accession in the new member states gave all this impact to the new member states to improve media pluralism and media freedom conditions. And although of course progress reports are not devoted to media freedom and pluralism, they only touch upon these things as far as Copenhagen criteria are concerned. But still, all this monitoring, whether it's institutional, whether it's scientific, as the Media Pluralism Monitor is, it is something that is given quite a lot of of political weight in many countries, especially those that register certain problems. And that is something that has an impact on its own in the member states, even in the cases of monitoring, even if you think of Freedom House ranking, it does have quite a lot of political reflection in the countries with problems. So it does have an impact, but also it has impact even on the way we construct policies and deal with policies. I'll give an example again with the accession process, that the whole order, the whole focus on certain chapters or certain acquis is different now, learning the lessons from the previous waves of accession countries, and now there is much more focus on media freedom and media pluralism in the accession process. So there is an opening for policy impact even beyond the ones that we firstly think of, like competencies of EU and direct competencies of EU, but there is also this secondary impact. And I don't want to repeat too much of what Gabriele said, but this coordination between member states and institutions is incredibly important in this respect. And the third message that I will briefly touch on is that media pluralism functions beyond national borders. And this is something that this is also forward thinking of media pluralism, and so far we are more used to thinking of media pluralism within the states. But as we see with the advance of new technologies, with the advance of the single digital market, with the cross-ownership of media between countries as well, with the concentration, as Beata mentioned, of these global media corporations, with foreign investments in different countries, it's becoming not only from the consumption side of media, borders are not, national borders are not what they used to be, but also from the perspective of ownership and editorial policies, national borders are not what they used to be. So we need also to reflect this and to work further in this direction, considering media pluralism and media freedom. And I'll end here.